Okay, it's 2 minutes after, so I think I'm gonna go ahead and get us started. Couple of things to begin with. Number one, I'm going to do questions at the end. I tried my best to keep this short. I have a tendency to talk a lot, so I'm gonna try to keep it to as few slides as possible. It's gonna give us time for questions. So if you have questions, you should see a questions box. Just type them in, and time permitting at the end, we will go through as many as we can. The only other item to mention is that the presentation you'll see should be in the handout section, so you can download it if you'd like. And with that all said, I think I'm going to get us started. So this is the Snack and Learn presentation, Beyond BIM, Digital Trends That Matter in 2025 and Beyond. My name is Chris Harman. I'm a civil engineer by background, director of digital and digital delivery for the transportation and infrastructure business in the US for WSP. Our agenda for today is to do a little bit of BIM background. Digital twins, I'm gonna run through artificial intelligence. Sorry, we've got to do that every time now. Data-centric workflows, platformization, which I don't know if is a word, but we're going to use that word today. I'm going to leave you with some kind of, Chris's philosophical musings at the end, and then hopefully, like I said, more time for questions and answers. Okay, so kicking it off, no presentation about what's next in BIM should ever begin without a definition of BIM. I'm not huge on definitions, so I've tried to be more visual, but you can see this kind of AI generated bridge, which looks a little crazy, but there's two things that should be popping out at us, and that is, there's geometry, there's a representation, a digital representation of that physical asset or thing, however we're going to describe it. And there's also information about it, metadata, data attributes. And I like to tell people that BIM is kind of the combination of both of those things. And we can get very trapped or lost in either one of them. And I think it's important that we keep thinking about it being all of those things, both of those things together. And hopefully, through this presentation, you won't have to hear too much about BIM, because this is about what's next. So I'm going to start it off with, I guess, maybe another kind of overdone pair of words, digital twins. I'm out of my trough of disillusionment, and I wanted to just mention that I think it is moving beyond that. Digital twins are becoming more and more kind of relevant today as we move beyond static models, as we move beyond kind of the hype about them and more into the outcomes they provide. So transitioning, from those basically static models and turning them into more real-time connected environments towards a specific outcome, whatever that might be. So integration with sensors is huge now. I think it's becoming more and more common, especially in the vertical construction space and in the manufacturing space. And in transportation infrastructure, do see that coming more and more as well. Bridge sensors, there's so much information now in the mobility space that can be tied to it. And then life cycle thinking. I think we've all basically been inundated with this life cycle idea about it being more than just design and construction, but operations and asset management. There's one kind of pair of words, economy and circular economy or economy strategies. And a message I've heard more and more from our clients is that they want us to be a part of their economy, whatever economy the infrastructure we're providing is serving. It's important that we think of ourselves as also being a part of that. And digital twins give us a unique opportunity to actually integrate ourselves with an economy, with actually providing benefit beyond just a digital version of your plan sets for construction. I'm going to, for every single one of these future trends, have this reality check wins and sins. I kind of wanted to focus on some real world examples. where is this actually happening, kind of who's doing it, where. And then also a couple of what I like to call tropes, right? Tropes to avoid. What are we hearing, or what have we been hearing people say that we want to just stop? Let's not do that anymore. So for a real world example, Singapore's virtual city model, that's a lot more than just a 3D model. I think what I got excited about with that is they actually integrated so many urban planning features. It's kind of a format that I've been watching develop over a few years. UK's National Digital Twin Program, you know, an ecosystem of twins, the twins of twins, and their utilities twin, those are really exciting programs kind of focused on implementing these at scale. A couple of tropes to avoid. Digital twin is a BIM model with live data, right? I don't think we can just describe it that way. I think that there's nuance to it. It's more than 3D and sensors. I think you really need to be gaining some insight from it. You need to be, you know, simulating something. So there's got to be something to come out of it. And then the last one, you know, the obvious use case very early on is to avoid site visits and kind of use the digital twin as, you know, the virtual environment, and that's all you ever need. We won't go to site anymore. And I just don't see this happening yet. I see people, we still have a need to go out. We still have a need to inspect. One of the challenges I think in the whole space is just how much the physical world changes in ways that's very difficult to keep track of in a virtual one. And that's one that we really need to work on cracking. The next big trend beyond BIM trend is obviously AI. Design and automation, I think, has been on everyone's radar for a long time, and artificial intelligence has kind of catapulted us in that space. Generative design and optimization, so that's tools that propose design solutions based on constraints or goals. Compliance checking, those same constraints could be thought of as your scope requirements or regulatory requirements. And those AI tools are and can be very powerful in that they make sure that we're not wasting a ton of time going back and checking to make sure that we ticked every box. And the one that's really blowing up right now, AI as a digital colleague. I think this is beyond agents and agentic. This is actually, we're starting to see AI capable of doing multiple tasks, you know, pushing itself beyond just a couple of simple, you know, one steps and then moving to the next, and actually creating a task list for itself and kind of going it all the way through. So the one that's gotten a lot of hype over the last, I guess, week and a half is Manus. If anybody wants to do a little research on that, that's kind of the future, I think, that is waking everybody up. So wins and sins, real world examples, HyperR, TestFit, no affiliation with those two platforms, but they generate designs for early concept, and I think Autodesk Forma is very similar. It's conceptual design, but it's more site driven as opposed to HyperR and TestFit, which I believe are more kind of like building space. But the similar kind of thing between them is that it's, you know, it's those constraint based. It's actually generating designs based on a set of constraints. I think in terms of tropes to avoid in this space, one that, and I'm guilty of this one, I think maybe many of us are, is that AI isn't coming from for your job, someone using AI is. And I just don't think that's true anymore. I think that the way I've seen AI shift and the way I've seen just, you know, agents change, and you can see it a lot in software right now, I think the job market is going to be upended in some significant ways. I'm not trying to doom and gloom. I think that there's always going to be humans in the loop, but automating and accomplishing so much of what we do every day is going to, I don't think that there's any way that that doesn't change how our economy operates. And I think the other side to that is that it's going to replace us. AI is going to replace designers, and we don't need that anymore. I think short term, right now, we see just a huge problem with context. Context meaning how much an AI can remember. Even the agents or the multi-step task ones get bogged down if they have to remember what they're doing too much. And beyond that, I think in the design and engineering space, there's so much heuristics and tacit knowledge that we keep that's just kind of like, it's like the engine that powers all of our delivery. And that makes it really hard for us to kind of push the boundaries of AI when so much of it is going on just kind of like in the back of our heads as we go through every day. Okay, so we've done digital twins, we've done AI and automation. I think a big piece that's underpinning that, and something that we've been struggling with for a long time, is data-centric workflows. I also think, vector databases, relational databases, knowledge graphs, these are all things that I've started to pick up more and more and more, I think, because so much of what we do is complex and connected. And so one of the big pieces that we are trying to tell our clients right now is that we need to start thinking from file-based to data-based, right? Files are a thing of the past, and any file-based delivery is going to struggle to deliver something that's really next level. So how do we move away from traditional file-based workflows? And I think that it's taking that data-centric approach. Knowledge graphs in AEC, so semantic data structures and knowledge graphs. As I said, so much of what we do is complicated and relational, and the ability to construct a knowledge graph about what we're doing gives us a real advantage to actually learn some stuff and analyze. And then the last point there is about the future of CDEs, common data environments, AI-assisted queryable data platforms, not just document repositories. I've been using this image a lot with my clients, and what I tell them is, file-based delivery, if at the end of your project, your idea of a handover is a Revit file or a MicroStation DGN file, it's a file format, then it's no different than getting a printed set in a binder file, right? In 10 years, that thing is going to be as useful to you as that, hard paper binder. And a file folder and a file and a digital file, we need to start thinking of those things as the same thing. We need to start thinking beyond that and start thinking about a database, a table of information that's going to be delivered at the end of a project. Wins and sins, right? So real world examples, Esri's ArcGIS Knowledge, they have a full platform kind of inside their enterprise environment that will let you build knowledge graphs and analyze and detect complex relationships and patterns, and you can really get some interesting insight when you start thinking about things that way. And then 19650 is set out, kind of the traditional collaborative working, this idea of a structure of moving information through phases instead of moving files through folders. As we start to apply that more and more, I think that our environments that we're working in are going to have to be updated to kind of match the requirements we're pushing. Tropes to avoid in the data space. Data is the new oil, right? I think I don't hear that one very much anymore, but garbage in, garbage out, I think is another trope, but maybe applies to that one. It's only valuable if it's structured, connected, right? And I think that's what we're being paid to do, which is to produce, connected and usable data. The other one that I kind of always cringe at is single source of truth. I don't particularly like that trope. I think it's difficult to ever have a single place to store anything. I have never seen it. What we may be able to say is a connected source of truth, a system of systems, a cloud, a common data environment is, a connected set of data environments. And then the last one is BIM is dead, right? It's all about the data now. And I think that misses the data portion of BIM, kind of like that, that really important other half to just being about geometry. So I don't like hearing about the end of BIM either. I don't think that's true. I think it's evolving in maybe how much we do with it. Okay, this is my last one as we move towards the end of this presentation. And this is about the rise of platformization in AEC. I'm not sure if that's a word, platformization, but some words that I think we're going to hear a lot more, are platforms, marketplaces, ecosystems. More and more, we're uh, rapidly approaching a shift in selling hours. And we see this, I think, with our vendors, we see this with our competitors, we see this everywhere out right now. And that's this concept of like our AEC industry is a platform economy, right? So API driven, cloud-based, instead of standalone software solutions. Um, there's also another side to that, which is not necessarily opposed to value creation or making money, which is this kind of an open source approach. Adoption of interoperable standards or open standards that you can grow and then offer additional consulting or additional analytics or platforms on top of. I think there's a little bit of a race right there. And then data as a service or marketplace models, right? So um, companies will increasingly monetize data and analytics, right? What we want to do is make a giant pool of unusable data very useful for someone, and that's in a sense where I think we're shifting. And as we do that, maybe we can, or maybe someone can find a way to platformatize that data into some sort of marketplace model. So wins and sins in this space. Siemens Accelerator is a pretty interesting example. I think as a hardware provider, they were or are, kind of in an interesting place. They have kind of like an open ecosystem partnership where they let you, it's kind of like a marketplace of solutions that you can build on top of. It's an example, right? Autodesk Platform Services in the Autodesk space. Speckle, I think, is someone utilizing that. That is their kind of open connected platform that you can build on top of. Bentley has their iTwin.js platform, and they've got their own infrastructure schema that you can build on top of. Those are two of the biggest, I think, in the AEC design space, two of the biggest vendors, and they're both offering open platform solutions to build applications on top of. And then the last one, just to also say, I think open source is still playing a really big part of what we're doing and what we're seeing. And IFC OpenShell, Blender, the kind of host of applications and things that are available from Building Smart. And there's a lot of good stuff out there that anyone can download and maybe duplicate, or however you want to do it, and start building on top of. Tropes to avoid in the space, I think, in platforms is kind of like this one platform to rule them all. I think everyone would wish that they could own that one platform, and it's going to be a race for that, but I don't see that ever happening. There's never going to be one single solution. I think it's going to be more about those connected solutions, very similar to my single source of truth complaint earlier. Or the future is SaaS subscriptions, right? We're all moving to a subscription model. We'll just make a subscription for everything. And I think it's a part of it. I know that everyone is likely going to have some sort of subscription model, but there's always going to be a need for local control, for hybrid models. There's never like this one-off solution. I think there's always going to be kind of a configuration of where the subscription starts and the local control stops. And then the final one, like we've solved interoperability, right? This standard or this is going to connect everything and it's all fixed. But I don't know how feasible that is, because open source development is so new for the industry, and so much of the really powerful data integrations are locked into vendor platforms. It makes it hard to deliver real value without digging in any one or other platform solution, which inevitably kind of narrows you down. Okay, so I'm gonna, I think, wax philosophical for a second. I've heard this current kind of digitalization really is what it is, shift described by many as being similar to the transition from paper to CAD, from hand drawing to CAD. And I really feel like that's not true. Maybe it's another trope to avoid. I feel like a lot of what we're doing is a more major shift than that. I think for, thousands of years we've built and constructed in a very common way. The idea behind design and construction was to take a complex idea about how to construct something and then transfer it to a clay tablet in ancient Mesopotamia or paper plans today. And I really think that it's different now. I don't think the goal of much of our work over the next, 100 years will be to replicate the plan's production process. I think that we've seen a fundamental shift. So this little kind of, Hunter S. Thompson-esque insight into our world is where I'm sitting on it right now. The machine doesn't care about your lineage. CAD, I think, is described more. I describe it as more of a mimicry, right? Paper made pixel, Xerox machine with a memory, and what we're seeing now is more of a rupture. That same script we carved for centuries, this idea about building plans, measured lines, scaled intent, instructions for hand, is being replaced. And we're not digitizing a process. We're not just transferring it paper to digital. We're severing it. We are data now. Our expertise is an algorithm. And that is something that I think we are going to be butting our heads against over the next decade for sure. Okay, so with that, and I didn't mean for it to sound so, I was trying to think of a way to make that sound happier, but I can move to questions. And I can see there's a couple going in here. It's a good one to start with, actually, because it's similar to the philosophical debate. My first question is, can you elaborate a bit more on what you mean by data replacing files? To me, a file format is a special way of storing data. I don't see how a database would be suitable for storing the data given in a PDF. Wouldn't you want a special file for that type of data? What do you gain by doing this? I think I would describe PDF as more of an output of data. I think what I mean by that is a table of information or a data as a file format could generate PDFs. It could also generate a schedule of assets. It could generate a schedule of construction. You take a building and you provide a database for that building in design. A person should be able to generate whatever they want out of that, whatever they require. So if they require PDFs, maybe you need to store geometry information in there. If they require a schedule of doors, just looked at a door, you guys can't see it, then they should be able to pull that schedule of doors out. And that is the fundamental difference that I'm talking about, right? It's instead of trapping that information into a PDF where you can only get a schedule from a PDF if the schedule's written on the PDF. I want an owner to be able to generate a schedule of doors if they want, or generate a floor plan with all the doors shown on it. Hopefully that captures it. And I also agree with you. I am still talking about file formats. I'm talking about a database as a file format, which is still a format. A common data exchange format is a JSON file. And if you request a JSON file at the end of the project, in some senses, how is that so much different than requesting a Revit file? And I think it's more about the openness and the ability to extend it to your needs and uses. Next question 2, how would you recommend people go about upskilling themselves in digital technologies and advancements? If you have access to a large language model, which I think everyone does at this point, the free ones are still really good. That's usually where I tell people to start. As it comes to AI, that's the first digital skill that you should start getting to grips with. And interacting with a large language model, one of the best uses for that, I think, is in training, upskilling. You can use it to mentor, you can use it to teach, you can learn so much. And there is a kind of like a popular viral phrase right now called vibe coding. So I don't know if anyone's heard of vibe coding, but it's taken up a lot of my time recently. And that's where you use a large language model to just help you code something, help you build something. And I just encourage you to just try, take that same question about what should I be doing? I'm in AEC. How can I improve my digital skills, right? Just ask a language model and have it give you some good places to start, and then have it build out a little learning program for you, and then code something. I think the last thing I'd say is we are more and more using a Git workflow in AEC. If you don't actively contribute to Git repositories and use a kind of like Git workflow, I think it will be coming. It's how much of the current world's industries operate today, and it's coming for us. More and more of our owners, and clients, more and more of our companies are going to have their own Git repositories, and they're going to expect us to understand how to interact with those. So that would be another one. There's a question about AI engines in Revit, and those do exist. There's a lot of good opportunities to use that. The Autodesk Platform Services actually will allow you to do. It has an open API, and so does say like ChatGPT. So you can build little agents that will interact with Revit data. But I can see that coming in a much more kind of structured format. I'm going to try to go quick because we're running out of time. What do you think the next steps are for transitioning from 3D to 4D and 5D models, adding time and cost parameters to federated models? I think that data standards are really important for that. You really need to understand it from the beginning, right? You got to start with those kinds of ends in mind. I also think that a lot of the manual steps in working through that are going to be improved with AI tools, say inside of Revit, which is going to make it much easier to identify and link, say, items in a work breakdown schedule or system into elements inside of a model. Data standards have been something that we've really struggled with as an industry. And part of that, I think, is because the value wasn't there to really dive in. 4D and 5D are great, but it's almost like a bespoke solution on every job. And because it's the way the world works and how, AI really benefits, I think more and more companies are going to start standardizing data, and that data standard is how you get 4D and 5D to really win. Okay. I'm not going to pick. I'm just going to keep going in order. So I apologize if I don't get to you. Actually, we're out of time, it looks like. So perhaps I should close it down. I've got 3 more questions in here, and I am absolutely happy to dive into those and respond back. And if anyone has further questions, if you've got something that you're dying to talk about, please reach out. Happy to talk about any of this. It really did go fast, and I really appreciate everyone's time. Thank you so much for participating.